Happy Tuesday, friends. Welcome to another episode of Lean Coaching for Lean Coaches. And today we have a special edition for you. And before we hop into our special guest, as you know, this is my jam. I love helping you as lean coaches and consultants get unstuck. If you're looking to start your business, helping you do that. If you're stuck in where you're at right now, looking to move forward, that's my jam, helping you get clarity and moving forward. So if you've got any questions and you're in that space, shoot me a DM and let's have a conversation. But what you've all been waiting for here is this conversation, which is going to be really unscripted, honestly. And that's probably the best here. It helps us practice our thinking um, in the moment and just trying things. So, you know her all as the author of Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn, and also consultant and coach and just all around great lady, Katie Anderson. Thank you for being here with us today to talk about this topic of sales and marketing. We're all going to learn today, I know.
Welcome, everyone, and thanks, Sam, for inviting me. And I have my coffee here. It's 8 a.m. on the Pacific Coast,
Right.
or Pacific time zone, where Sam and I both are. Just was getting my kids off to school, so that's life. How we all are. Running life, running business, and trying to make it all work together. Which is one of the great things about having your own business is that you call your own shots, right? Sometimes you mean. I'm a high achiever. Sometimes I take on too much, but I really love having control. And so, it's great. So I'm sure I'll get a little more energetic as my coffee starts.
That's fair. That's fair. I think I've told this story here before. I would have my coffee right here as well. If it weren't for back a few months ago, I was noticing I was having little sugar ants come up here. And my wife so aptly observed, maybe you ought to stop eating and drinking in your office. And sure enough, that was good root cause analysis because I took it away and I've since only had in months like one little ant. So no coffee for me, but it's here in spirit for sure.
Yes. Well,
but we'd love for you to hop in, tell us what's on your mind, where you're calling in from, your questions. This is really about a conversation. As you all know, I'm just like 18 months into my journey doing lean coaching, and Katie's been doing it for 10 years. So I figured it'd be a great conversation. I've got questions. I know you do. So please put those in there. We want to bounce these around, all learn together.
And I have questions still too. I think the real important thing is we're all learning. And when Sam invited me to come here today to have this conversation, I was really interested in, because it's helpful to learn what others have been doing, what they've tried, what's resonated. And I'm still learning. I came from academia. I never thought I was going to start my own business. So I've learned a lot, and I'm happy to share some of my tips and some resources that have been helpful for me in my growth as well. But I really want to hear from you all too. So,
yeah, this is definitely a learning environment as continuous improvement practitioners. I think we can get stuck in that rut of like, I've got to have the answers. We're problem solvers. You talk about this all the time, Katie, in your podcast, posts, all the things, that we often think, that's what my job is to do. But honestly, being able to say, hey, I don't know. And what can I try? I've got lots of questions here, but again, please drop yours in and we'll get to those. We'll put yours right to the front of the queue as those come in. One of the things that I've been thinking about is this idea of like, I'll just start with a question that's really top of mind for me. May as well just let's go right for it. I've got ones that I listed, but I'm going to go first here. I had a conversation recently with someone who I was working with and is a potential person that I could support as a coach, and made them an offer of support. And then as I was reflecting back, I'm like, oh man, did I push too much? Like their face was like, but I knew I could definitely help, and it would be a help. Like that was very clear. And it was just the cost, right? In their mind that was a challenge. This is a huge weight. And that's been on my mind, like was on my mind overnight, thinking about this that day when I did this. So I'm wondering for you, if you've ever had those kind of conversations, where you're like making an offer to support a group or organization or individual, and you're like, oh, and you had questions about how you showed up in that. Because I know we can all, I guess we've had sales conversations, and it's just been like, what am I thinking? Why am I overthinking this? I did it fine.
Yeah.
Just share anything on that.
Well, first of all, I'll answer your question, but I want to go back for a little context. So, I think there's been a lot of evolution in my own business over the last 10 years. I started off Amazingly, when I left my last internal role in 2000 and oh my gosh, 13, so again, we're coming up on 11 years. I had contracting work immediately coming out of my first job, so I never really had. And I knew what they were paying consultants, so it was really easy conversations. I never had to really think about that, but as I've gone and grown, it's like, okay, how do I have those conversations? Selling has never felt like, or the word selling has never felt natural to me, but showing up authentically and providing value. And so I've gotten coaches over the years to really help me. I've been working with this awesome woman. She's actually going to be on my podcast starting next week. Betsy Jordan. I highly recommend her. She works just with coaches and consultants who are starting their businesses, really thinking about branding and marketing. And Betsy's just been really tremendous for me, not just in thinking about my how I think about my business, but how am I structuring my sales process and that conversation. So, and really, what's helped me is focus on the value rather than the thing I'm going to deliver or hours I'm going to spend. And I'm still a work in progress on this as well. But really, like, what's the value the organization or the individual is going to get? Now, I have found and so I've been working on that in over 2 years with Betsy, and that's really helped me have what I feel like are more natural conversations.
Yes.
Because our natural, and this is like, I think because we're problem solvers, lean coaches, consultants, we want to jump into the thing we're going to do or the product or the, sure. Yeah, I can do a workshop, or, yeah, I can do some coaching, or yeah, I can do that talk. And then sometimes people break it down and they're like, what's that? But no, what's the value it's going to bring to your event, to your organization, to your leadership? What are they going to be able to transform? And that's a really helpful shift in both your own mindset, but also in the conversation it has with the person. I've also found that there's a difference between selling to individuals who are paying for it out of their own pocket versus if you're selling to a corporation, and then pricing's different. So you have to price at the point that you're selling, the value is different for an individual versus like someone who has some corporate funding to pay for coaching or, training. So it's also knowing what their price sensitivity is, and then making sure you're providing offers that fit both what you want and are able to provide, but also fit for your customer. So it's finding that right match.
Yeah, I think that is the question, right? And it's like, when am I ever going to figure this out and get it right? When it comes to that, because you're right, it's obviously different for a corporate person who has that support, or someone who's an individual, maybe who might be, whoever it might be, that they're doing it on their own and they need this type of support. And thinking about that, but going back to your point on value, I think that's the thing. And it's like, what's the value that I'm providing them? And that's where, Harvey, you mentioned asking the questions, right?
Yes.
During the conversations to surface, okay, what is the need? What's the problem? What's the pain point, right? Because you can have a great, here's a great frame or a great offer, you facilitate in this way. But if it doesn't address their pain point or their biggest problem, why are you even offering it? So I love that, getting and digging into those questions to help surface it in that natural way. And that's where I think that is, so what it is they need, and then you can say, okay, this is the value. Does that sound like a good fit? Would that be helpful to you? Or I don't know, some question like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, questions are always don't focus that, right. But I think that the key takeaway is don't focus on the thing. Like the thing you're providing. It's about the transformation that they're going to experience, or the impact or value that they're going to have through whatever it is of your partnership. So that's been, because it's so easy to jump to the thing. It's the same thing. We jump to the solution, we jump to the action, but really what's the value. And so it's a shift in conversation. So I'm still a work in progress. And that's been so helpful. And I realized when, and I'm actually going to, on my podcast, going to have some folks who are really focused on sales come on to have this conversation. So stay tuned later on Chain of Learning for that as well, because I think it's really important. And, if you think about it, not just selling our services as external consultants, but even when you're an internal consultant, working in an organization, you're not necessarily selling the price of your services, but it's about sales is about how do you bring people along on a journey, on an idea, and get them quote unquote bought in, whether or not they're
Yeah.
bought in with their money, their
That's a
time,
good way
their
to put it.
commitment, into whatever the process is. And so getting better, I realized I'm actually really good at sales if I take away the word sales, because I'm
That's right.
when I'm passionate about something, and this gets to something I wanted to talk about. I've never felt as comfortable in just sort of selling something to like push something and go, okay, push versus pull.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am much better at putting out ideas and like getting, if I'm really excited about something, I can really genuinely,
Yes.
I love my Japan trips. I'm not out there trying to sell or push my Japan trips. I'm like, I think this is an amazing
It's
experience.
awesome.
It's been
Yep.
so transformational for me. Listen to all these people. Yeah, there's a price attached to it. But I can talk about it because I'm not like trying to sell the thing. It's like, or anything else as an internal consultant, selling your ideas, getting people bought in and
Yes.
excited. It's all the same skills that we have. And I think we kind of we start being pushy. Like if you're pushing ideas anyway, that telling is never, like, is my latest podcast. Like,
Yeah.
then people are gonna be runaway. So how do you get the pull, right? The pull, the interest, showing value is one way to get that pull. Putting out great ideas and content, all the things you're doing, Sam. Like I decided that I'm much more about what they call inbound marketing versus outbound marketing.
Yeah.
I'm going to put out, that's why I invest my own time and my own money for having, say, my podcast, Chain of Learning, putting
Yep.
out articles, why I started my blog, 10 years ago when I moved to
Yep.
Japan, because I want to share
Yep.
things from a genuine, authentic, sharing, connecting way. And if
Yep.
that then resonates with people, then we can have a conversation about how we can partner together. And you've already
Yes.
created that relationship before you've created that relationship. And to me, that's what it's all about. And it's about finding the right value and connection together.
What resonates for me about what you just said is coming out of passion and it coming out. I was listening to this podcast recently, not Chain of Learning, and different one, but I definitely love your podcast for sure. But this one was Diary of a CEO, and it was a guy who was a very successful entrepreneur and has helped build massive amounts of businesses. And he said that we're in the world right now of, like, social media, obviously LinkedIn, we're on there, Instagram, TikTok, all the things where the camera is so often pointed at us. We're so focused on us, right? And like, look at me, like in sales, it's like me, versus what he was saying. What people are really drawn to is when the camera is pointed out and the spotlight is pointed out. Hey, everybody, come look around this idea. And he said those are the businesses that actually thrive. And like we talk about often sustainability, right? Culture, sustaining culture. And I think the same with business, right? Sustaining business is, hey, look at this great idea. Let's come all look at it together. And that's what you're talking about, like with your Japan trips and all of the other things that you're doing. You're like, you're genuinely excited, like, hey, let's come look. And people are drawn to that. So I think that you said that just that genuineness around your passion for it is what people are drawn to. And then there's the opportunity for a conversation to see if it's a fit to work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's important for me to, put out things that are free and accessible at all, or like accessible at different levels, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I put out so much, content that's just there, because I genuinely want to help. And then there's other ways that we can work together. But I realized I kind of had a burnout moment. So like I've had different points of my business journey when I released my book right in the height of the pandemic in July of 2020. That was the first time that I was really sort of sailing and marketing. But again, it was easy for me to talk about marketing. Hold up my book, because I was talking about Mr. Yoshino. And again, I wrote that book out of passion of sharing his stories. I'm like, oh my God, I had access to this incredible leader. The world needs to hear this as well. And so that felt really authentic. But also things shifted for all of us in the pandemic. And for me, a lot of my corporate work had paused, or, and I was starting like in this content creation and started actually doing a lot of work directly to individuals. And so for about 18 months, most of my work, which was great because I created so much and I loved connecting with people around the world, but so much of my time, and then I had hired some people to help me with my team because I realized at that point I couldn't do it all, which we can talk about as a second part about growing your business. it became much more focused on the sales process, like setting up a 7-sequence email for a
Yeah.
drip sequence to, and like,
Yeah.
I was like, after a while, I'm like, I hate this. Like,
Yeah.
this is not how this is not how I want to be.
I
Like,
know. Yeah.
yeah, and like, yes, you have to get things in front of people, and you can't just like, people need to
Yeah.
hear things 7 times, and like, and it was good. I mean,
Yeah.
I served a lot of people. You, Sam, you were part of, one of my coaching groups,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's how we met, and like, all of that's
Yeah.
great, but uh, I realized that where my time was being spent was like, I was telling, like, hiring people to write sales copy and drip sequences, and I was like, this is not the business I want to have. And so you can change your business,
Yeah.
right? And so I actually made a decision. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna shift how I'm doing things. So I experimented with
Mm,
that, and I had some success,
love
but
it.
I just felt like so much of my time energy was being spent on the sales process versus doing the work. And so you have to get people into your business. So I look, there has to be different
Yeah.
ways to do that, but you have to
Yeah.
find what works for you. But what was nice out of that, a lot of corporate work came back, and my Japan trips were able to start coming back. And so there was just a natural shift also in coming more out of the pandemic at that time in 2022. Yeah.
That's okay.
So that was good. But again, I tried a lot on, and I learned a lot from that process too. So I think the real important thing, and Harvey, this goes to your comment here, if we can have a learning mindset and see
Yep.
ourselves as lifelong learning enthusiasts and frame things as experiments, like, I'm going to try
Yeah.
this. Like, I don't know, I don't know much about like the sales process. Like, I actually learned a lot of good language that I've been able to
Yes.
incorporate into how I frame LinkedIn posts, not to be
Yep.
salesy, but like, you know, so I learned a lot through the process, but then I also had to pay attention with what was feeling authentic to me as a business leader. And that was like, had pivoted too far into my business being about sales rather than my business being about delivery. And so I was like, even if I'm having less income now, I will have more joy if I'm, so you also
Yeah.
have to pay attention to that. What brings you joy? And yes,
That's
you
right.
clients, but there's peaks and valleys that happen, and that's some of the inherent part of running your business too. But I did make some shifts too on how I was structuring the work I was doing, and so there wasn't as much peaks and valleys. So again, get a coach, have people help you figure out things that you don't know how to do, and then but also pay attention to what's resonating for your own joy, because we're in business both because we need, like, you need money, but like because you want to do good work and work that's joyful, and so you gotta pay attention to the whole thing.
You got to. And I think that comes back to, the passion that you had coming out of the passion you have being you. I've had this, I was sitting in a meeting with a couple other coaches. I'm a part of this coaches community called Coaches Mentor, and it's for coaches who are, because there's not a lot of, honestly, places where coaches can go to get that kind of support, like on their business journey, like with the business and then with the coaching, right? There's so much content out there for those things, but like having a community where you can share that, and was just sharing about some challenges that I was having with some sales stuff. And one of the coaches on the call, who was, a former coach of mine, one-on-one, he said, I read this book from Tim Ferriss called Tools of the Titans. And in it, he shared something about, if it's not working, do the opposite.
Mm,
For me, I always operated out. I shouldn't say always, but I'm a very thinking, like, overthinker. And so I'm always in the process, having the structure. Here's the offer, like having all the steps of the process. And I recognized that, like, with my content, with my sales, all these things. So how could I switch that up? Being more present, versus having a structure in my conversations with people.
mm,
Um, so that it felt less salesy. I feel like that's a word that's like a byword in our
mm,
community, especially because we don't want to be it. The term that I like from Seth Godin is, the person I'm seeking to support, rather than, like, if we're looking at that, people that we're wanting to support, I think it reframes it, and then it opens it up to a conversation versus a sales call. Because it's all about the words. We're looking to exchange energy here.
mm.
How I'm going to support you with your solving your problem, the value to help you solve your problem. So I'm
Yeah,
curious if anybody else has any other questions. Would love to hear from you. I mean, I could talk about this for
yeah,
quite a while, but would love, if you have any questions you want to ask Katie, please drop those in, and we can
yeah,
obviously
sure.
keep the conversation going here. So
I want to, as we go into the question, though, I want to build on something you just said, Sam, and that's around
mm,
getting clear on who your ideal customer is, who
yes.
you best serve. Because
Yeah.
I think this was like, I hated sort of niching down.
Yeah.
And that was some hard work for me, but I realized there was
Yes.
consistency in the types of people I was continuing to work with and the type of work that I really wanted to do.
Yes.
And so to get really clear on that, and then shift some of the language on my website and shift some of the language on how I was talking. But I'm like, but I want to serve everyone and I can, and my message.
Yeah.
And like, no, but if you're serving everyone, then you're actually not getting clarity, and the
Yep.
right people aren't going to come to you. So I got clarity that like my main clients, it doesn't mean I don't work with other people, are people leading transformation efforts in their organizations. And
Yes.
I'm their either behind the scenes thought partner, as in my trusted advisor services. I'm your
Yep.
burst of energy to be that outside voice to come in to do your leadership retreat, or like, I mean, speak at your conference, do your thing. Like, my energy comes through in person as well. Or to help train and develop your internal team of change leaders and leaders, but not to be leading your transformation. And so like, I'm your partner in leading the transformation, but I'm not going to be yeah, I could come in and do the work, but that's not what I do anymore. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
help me get really clear on who I'm best serving and then how to frame my messages to resonate with that. So that was a really helpful thing. So I think you mentioned like knowing your client or who you're
Yes.
talking to. And so it's about having that clarity for yourself too is really helpful. And people remind me, it doesn't mean that your messages don't connect and help other people,
That's
but
right.
you
Of
also
course.
need to focus on the main message. So yeah.
And
So
I've gotten
yeah.
it's interesting. I've gotten 2 referrals this last week from people, and one was a lean person who's in a role in an organization who's wanting to grow
Mm,
themselves, and then another one is a person who's thinking about starting their own business as a lean consultant. They're in an internal role and want to start their own thing. So it's been helpful, like to have that clear message. So
mm,
people that know you and trust you can be like, "Oh, I know this person. Sam can help you. Would you be open to a conversation?" That kind of thing. So I think it's so important to be clear on that, because if you're not clear on that, then no one that trusts you
yes,
and knows you can be like, "Oh, I know Sam can help with this," right?
yes,
That totally makes sense. So I think
yes.
that totally speaks to that. I know Lee, you had hopped in here with um, no easy answer in sales and marketing, right?
Well, there's no easy answer to any of it, really. I mean, if you think about this, like, so great comment. Thanks for sharing, Lee. Like, it can be overwhelming, right? But I think the same
Yeah.
thing about like leadership books. Like, there are probably more than 70,000 leadership books out there.
Ah,
They're all basically saying the same thing. That's why I like sometimes have the moment of crisis. Why would I write another leadership book? But
right.
there's different things and approaches that resonate with different people in
That's
different
right.
ways.
That's right.
And we all need help in different, so, but yes, I mean, again, it can be overwhelming. And I certainly have felt overwhelmed at times too.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like, choose one thing or two things and try it. And again, go back to our lean mindset of experimentation, try
Yeah.
things, see how it works for you. Don't try and do everything all at once. Because one, that's overwhelming. And two, then you don't actually know what's
What's
working for you or
yeah.
connecting with your potential customers or clients.
What like this is one thing that I hear often, and I think this is I think I hear people who are looking to start their own consulting, like especially in lean space. Often I hear this from folks in like the DMs and even on posts is, well, I don't know where to start, and so that's that whole like So I'm wondering, what would you offer to someone who's kind of in that place that's feeling like, okay, I have this desire to start something on my own, but I don't know where to start. What would you offer to someone like that as a encouragement or advice or a thought?
So, I mean, this is advice even I would have given before we had so much social media, which always was start building your thought leadership now. Um,
Mm,
so way back when I would tell people, and this is something I think I did pretty successfully, in which I believe helped me launch my business when I didn't think I was I didn't think I
mm,
was ready to start my own consulting practice. Just there were some factors in my life that led to my decision to leave. And the reason I believe I had 2 contracts in the works before my last day of work because of the reputation I'd created from doing good work,
yeah.
speaking at conferences, on behalf of my company or the
Right.
organization, healthcare, but like also showing the work that I was doing in a it just getting out there. So leverage LinkedIn, start putting yourself out there, put your thoughts out there, your perspective out there. you're like, because you want to build a reputation. Again, it's reputation and
Yeah.
demonstration of your thought. Like, again, you want the inbound, or you want the people to be reaching out to you, that when you
Yep.
say, oh, I'm a whole, my shingles out, I'm open for business and helping support you and your organization. They're like, oh,
Yep.
wow, I already resonate with Sam's message.
Yep.
He's speaking to me, and like, yeah, I want to talk with him. So if you're,
Yeah.
because you don't have that presence and some thought leadership out there, I don't even know the word thought leadership, but like,
Yeah.
you're not creating for creating's sake, but you're connecting
Yeah.
your perspective out there with people who could resonate with it, and being collaborative and part of a thought community, either through speaking at conferences, posting on LinkedIn, writing some articles, going on some podcasts, whatever it is, but getting out there. So there's some people like my friend Joy Spencer has a great podcast talking about, reframe to create. Like, you, even if you're working in an organization, you need to create your own thing, your own perspective. And you can do that even when you're in an organization. And so that will
Yes.
lay the foundation for whatever you want to do later, regardless if it's taking a different position in another organization, or validating your career growth within your current organization. All of that is helpful. So that's my best advice. Put out your thoughts, leadership, connect, grow, speak. All of that's going to serve you no matter, if you're staying in your current company, want to go to a more senior role in a different company, or want to start your own independent practice as well.
I think that's great, and it requires you to step out into the unknown. And I think that's the one thing that I hear from a lot of people is that's the fear. Like, I don't know what the outcome's going to be, so that's what's holding me back. So this is really great. It's a
Mhm.
small thing you can do. Just post one thing, something that you're passionate about, something that got you upset. Having a
Yes.
perspective on something. Don't just post what everybody else is doing, because I tell you what, especially if you're using Chat GPT, I can tell. If
Oh
I
yeah.
can tell, somebody else can tell, and that's not it. Have your own voice and don't be afraid to share it. I know people have disconnected from me on LinkedIn and otherwise because of content that I've shared, and that's okay. As my
Yes.
LinkedIn coach said, attract and repel, right?
Well, right.
They
You
weren't
don't
going
want
to
those. Those aren't the people who are going to be their good clients. They're
no.
not going to serve you. And
So have your own voice. Yeah.
yeah, totally have your own voice. Don't like write something personal. Like, I think the ones that resonate the most and like are like telling a story from something you did at work, or something you learned, or an aha moment. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. And yeah, I love this phrase, step out into the unknown. And
Yeah.
I'm actually, later today, I'm going to be recording an upcoming podcast about being a lifelong learner. And part of that's having the courage to step into the unknown. And,
Yes.
and so I think the biggest thing is about how do you frame it as an experiment, and know that it doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world, but what's one thing you can try, and what's one
Yes.
thing that you can step in. Like, I did not think I was ready to start my own business. It was not the goal, but there were factors where I was like, it's time for me to leave this job. A variety of different reasons. And I was scared. And yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna use another word that starts with an S. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
I was like, but at the same time, I was like, I have to leap into the unknown. And if I hadn't had that courage to do that, I would never have, like, the doors that opened from that were tremendous, but I had to like move
Yeah.
through that fear of, oh my God, am I ready? Oh my God, what am, like, financially, well,
Yeah.
all these things. And then like, oh my gosh, it was so much better. And you have to be willing to just take that leap and be okay, be okay. Now you have to think about all the other factors and like, in your life, and can you manage the risks of different things, but that fear of failure, or like people not resonating, and yeah, it's strong, but what's the fear that holds you back? So,
That's right. Well, I'll say it for you, Katie, scared shitless, because I was there about on November 8th, 2022, when I hit that button that said resignation. That finger over the button was one of the most surreal moments of my life, because I'm not the kind of person to do that. Like, that
yeah, me
wasn't me.
neither.
I'm always the person who did what he was supposed to. Like, I do the process. Like, I get into the spreadsheet. I know my thing. This was like, no, like, and my wife, mm, man, she was such a huge support and still is to this day. When I don't believe in myself, in fact, last night we were having a conversation about this one client that's kind of has taken space in my head, and she was like, don't doubt, trust that you bring value to the
Mm,
spaces. I'm like, oh, I could have done this price or offered this or that. She's like, stop. You
yeah.
offer value, right? And so it's
Yes.
coming
Oh,
out and
she's so
really
smart.
and believing that when you step into this space, because really that is what you have to do is like, I have something valuable to offer to the world. And the question
Yes.
is, are you going to be brave enough to share it? Because the world needs your voice in the space. And if you don't share it, there are 7
Yeah.
billion people that are out there suffering in this world. And if you don't share your heart and your space and what's on your mind, then those people are going to continue to
Yep.
suffer. So, what are you going to do now?
So you have a great coach at home. And something else,
You do.
Sam, you and I talked about, and I think it builds on that, is that like there is space for all of us to be offering support and
Yes.
services, right? Like, so sometimes people think, oh, I'm not like, some people might have said, well, Katie, why are you going on Sam's show? Aren't you like now because he's a lean coach too? Aren't you competitors? And I do not see that. Like Karen Ross and Jamie Parker and I, and
Yep.
Tracy O'Rourke, we get asked that all the time because we collaborate in so many different ways on each other's
Yeah.
podcasts, sharing ideas, offering coaching groups like the Karen and Katie's coaching
Yeah.
that we did way back when, because there's space for all of us and we
That's
all
right.
can help each other get better, and we resonate in different ways and offer different things. And so I do not come from a place of competition. I come from a place of abundance and support
Yes.
and collaboration. And so if we can have that mindset too, then we can, you know, collaboration allows us to do
Yeah.
so much more. And so, yeah, I just think that's a really, really important thing. But I know we're at the bottom of the hour, so I'm not sure what our timing is. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, this is
being
great. We
here.
could talk about this for quite a while, as always. So if you all please continue the conversation in the chat, and if you've got any other questions, please drop it. Tag, Katie and I will be happy to answer whatever comes up, or
Yeah,
shoot us a DM if you've
yeah,
got questions on all of these. Obviously, Katie, you're doing great work with your book and going all. You're like a world traveler, getting stuck on planes that are going crazy,
yeah. Yeah.
podcasting, all the things. So you all know where to find Katie. What's the best way that folks can engage and support you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty prolific on LinkedIn. So at
Yeah.
kbjanderson.com, you can find me there. Also, my podcast has been going for almost 6 months now. That was a new leap into the unknown. I've been doing obviously a lot of content for a long time, but started a new podcast called Chain of Learning. And I mentioned like Betsy Jordan's going to be on there next week, and then going to have some focus on selling as well. And just a lot of really focused, it's made for you, lean coaches and consultants, people are driving continuous improvement, operational excellence in your community. And then, of course, my website, kbjanderson.com. So much resources there. And come to Japan with me, too.
Yes.
A little sales plug there, but not for you, salesy. I truly do. Bobby, I'm speaking to
No,
you.
that wasn't too much. No, no, it's coming through. And I'll just say this: like I look forward to the podcast episodes. I will listen to that as I'm having my coffee in the morning and walking around. Now I won't lie, because there's so much out there. I do put it on a little faster speed, but I
Oh, yeah.
grab all of it, like all of the things that you have on there. I've listened to every single one, and I just love it. There's always a little nugget here or there to pick up from, and I know that's your heart, is to just have somebody come in, pick something up, and be able to take that into their heart or into their practice,
Yeah.
so that things change for them just one little bit. And I
Yeah.
so encourage you
Yeah.
to definitely check that out, and go check out Katie's website, all the things. Go to Japan with her. My kids are actually going, and my wife, I didn't tell you this, but my wife and daughters are going to Japan next month.
Oh,
So
wow.
they'll
Awesome.
be enjoying all of the things there. Not
Yes.
to do a lean tour, of course. That would
No,
bore
no,
them to
there's so
pieces.
much. There's
But
so much.
yeah. They're gonna ride the train and do all of the fun things there. But you all please connect with Katie. Thank you so much for taking your time here today. And all please stay in touch. We'll be back on Thursday and talk more about sales and marketing in the lean space, and probably be having some reflections on this conversation here. So please show up again on Thursday. We'll be back at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. So thanks again, y'all. Have a great day. Be well.